Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey everyone, it's Jory. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share with you a couple of important announcements as well as share with you some links that are in the show notes that I would love for you to check out. First off, you're going to hear me talk about in this episode my Get Unstuck assessment. This is a brand new proprietary quiz that is now available. So go ahead, click that link in the show notes so you can help uncover which area in your life you are feeling most stuck. As I often say, you can't change what you're not aware of. So awareness is that first step to get you to journey forward. Secondly, I am launching my September cohort of the Journey Forward Method, which is my 8-week live course in which I guide you through all the steps and the tools and the frameworks so you can get and stay unstuck. This is a deep dive in understanding the basis of a mindfulness practice of being meditation, delving deep into what mindfulness is, how to bring it into your life, uncovering your core values to use as intentions to move forward, checking your mindsets, learning how to manage your thoughts, your emotions. This is a phenomenal course. I just finished the first one that we did just a couple of weeks ago. And let me tell you, there has been some beautiful transformations as well as really positive feedback from people who went through this course and are now utilizing these tools in their day-to-day lives, in those moments in which they feel overwhelmed, anxious, not sure what to do. So I really am excited for this September launch, and I hope that you are a part of it. So you can go ahead, look at the show notes and sign up for that September cohort. There'll be more information on that sales page. And lastly, in an effort to role model some self-care, I am going to be taking a break from the podcast during the summer, but I'm not going to be stopping to release some episodes. So I have put together what have been the top rated episodes as far as downloads and listens. And I'm going to release them for you guys because these are some really important conversations and tools. And perhaps even if you listen to them the first time around, maybe you'll gain something different from it now. You are different now than you were at any moment before. So I really hope that you enjoy these replays. And I will be launching an entire new season of podcast episodes starting up beginning in September. So if you want to make sure to get information from me between now and then, if you sign up for the Get Unstuck assessment, I will be sending out any new info that you have. I'm going to be doing a live webinar in August. So I really want to stay connected while at the same time I take a little bit of self-care from all of this work that I've been creating for my community. So I wish you guys a peaceful and relaxing summer full of self-care and some downtime. And in the meantime, check out those links. I can't wait to hear what you think. Please follow me on my Instagram at Jory Rose. You can always message me there and let me know the results of your quiz and see if it was where you thought you were at. So enjoy today's episode and take care and be well. Hey everyone, it's Jory Rose, and welcome back to this week's episode of Journey Forward with Jory Rose. I'm so glad that you tuned in today because I'm going to be talking about something that it is at the very root of everything that I teach, and it is how to get unstuck. And this is ultimately, when I'm talking about Journey Forward, this is what I mean. I'm talking about the ways in which you can get unstuck from what's not working for you. And that might be unstuck from how to disengage from thoughts in which you ruminate in, how to shift out of habits or patterns or mindsets that perhaps at one point served you, but they're not serving you now. When you can get unstuck, you have a greater ability to live your life on purpose, to live your life with awareness, attention, and intention, which of course are the three things you've probably heard me talk about before of how I define what it means to be mindful. And ultimately, so you can live a life of greater ease and peace and calm. And for me, one of my highest values of authenticity. Because I know that when I've been most stuck in my life, I'm not being my authentic self because I'm not in alignment. And that was something that I really had to tune my awareness into, of recognizing the moments or points in my life in which my mind and my body were not in agreement. And actually, that's called cognitive dissonance, when we feel one thing, but we think another. You don't know which one to trust. Well, I was so stuck in a pattern of cognitive dissonance for so many years. And I actually would tune into my thoughts in the belief that that was my truth. Turns out our thoughts are not our truth. Our thoughts are not always true. We've got a negativity bias. We're going to dwell in that negative. And our mind is going to produce between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day. They are not all our truth. But I was so accustomed to getting stuck there that I had essentially cut myself off from the neck down, in which I didn't even really feel a lot of different emotions. I thought them. My emotions were cognitive experiences, which is so strange to say that now because it's so far from where I am. And yet, I think that was originated in an effort to make sense of what was going on, to stay safe, to create a life of security and familiarity and comfort, and one of which was predictable. And it worked until it didn't work for me anymore. And that was one of my mindful moments. Those were my moments of awareness of when I really became cognizant of, I can't live like this anymore. I am feeling out of alignment. I've got to get unstuck. And so what propelled me into both a professional and very personal journey is how I got to where I am today. And it's why I am so passionate about teaching others how to get unstuck, because I know if I can do it, then anyone can do it. And I'm not necessarily better at any of this. I've just been practicing. And it's an ongoing practice. Because let me tell you, those things in which I most stayed stuck in, those areas in which I was either anxious or felt insecure or needed to create a better sense of safety or security, or had struggle in dealing with the unknown, those old habits still creep up sometimes. The key is that when they do creep up, I just don't hold on to them as tightly as my truth. And I've got a greater ability, because I've practiced my awareness, which is to me the number one answer of what it means to be mindful. Because I've practiced that awareness, I can begin to acknowledge, oh, look, there is this old pattern creeping up. There is this old habit. Just because it's here does not mean I need to take it on. It's not my truth. And how can I respond to these triggers of what's arising in a new and more mindful way? And if you're listening to this right now thinking, yes, please, I need to get some of that, how do I do that? Well, this is what the very thing that I've been working with my clients on for over 10 years and helping them gain these tools and these skills. And as I continue to cultivate and hone in on them in a really clear and succinct way, I've got some things that I can offer all of you. So you'll have to stay tuned to the end of the episode to hear some of those offerings. So I want to explain a little bit of not only the areas in which I believe most of us can get stuck in, but also the patterns that show up. So if you have noticed at all in my logo on the cover of my podcast, or perhaps you've been to my website or you've seen my Instagram page. By the way, if you haven't visited my website or seen my Instagram, check out Jory Rose. It's both of those for both my website as well as Instagram, as well as on Facebook. But if you have seen any things on social media of mine, you will have likely seen a spiral logo in which there's a spiral at the bottom and a twisty, curvy line coming out the top. And this is called an unalome. And I know I've talked about it before on the show, but I'm going to reference it here again now because it goes in direct connection to how we get unstuck. So as a reminder of the meaning of this unalome, at the bottom is that spiral, and that's like the hamster wheel of our life. That's where we spin, that's where we get triggered, that's where we get stuck, that's where we're on automatic pilot, that's where we're not even often aware that we're still stuck because we're just going through the motions and going so quickly so often, we haven't even slowed down. But once we have the awareness that we're in the spiral, as I call it, you have a choice. You can stay in the spiral, or you can choose to work your way out of it. Now, staying in the spiral sometimes is easier because it's habit, it's familiar, you know how to do it, you know what it looks like. And getting out of the spiral is a lot of hard work. Although that hard work does pay off because it gets you to where you want to be. So while it's hard work, it's ultimately going to bring you the greater peace and ease and calm, helping you be more resilient to whatever it is that life throws your way. Easier said than done, I know. That's why it's called a practice. But I've also come up with a framework that I call the cycle of reactivity that actually mirrors this unalome quite beautifully. So to imagine this cycle of reactivity, I invite you to envision a clock. And I know that I may have talked about this before as well, but I want to reiterate this because this is, again, how we can begin to conceptualize getting unstuck. And in a few moments, I'm going to go into some of the areas in which we get stuck and often what shows up for people in those different areas. So bear with me if this sounds like anything I've talked about in the past, but it's always great to get reminders. Okay, so you're back to imagining a clock. And imagine that on the 3 o'clock section, right? So to the right in the middle, let's start with our thoughts because people often get stuck in our thoughts. What are some thoughts that you might get stuck on? I can't do this. I'm not good enough. Why is this so hard? When is this going to end? Why is it easier for others? Why is this relationship so difficult? Why am I having such a hard time? A variety of thoughts that we can get stuck in which our inner critic takes over, shuts down our ability to offer compassion to ourselves, and we begin to spin. So let's take just one of those thoughts as an example to move us through this whole cycle of reactivity. So let's say we go with the thought that I hear a lot of people get stuck in of, I can't do this. This can be anything. It could be getting through the pandemic. It could be getting through your workday. It could be getting through a difficult conversation with your partner. It could be a challenging parenting moment. But it's very easy to get stuck in the thought, I can't do this. This sucks. Why me? Why is this so hard? Okay, so now it's at the 3 o'clock portion of the clock. If you go down to the 6 o'clock, down at the bottom, that thought is going to produce different sensations in our bodies. So even as you're listening right now, I invite you to tune into what sensations in your body might you experience that come along with the thought, I can't do this. You might get a pit in your stomach. You might get an increased heart rate. You might feel tension in your shoulders or in your neck. You might feel your jaw tighten. You might feel your hands tighten into a fist or clenching. You might feel your back being a little bit sore or, again, tight and having different knots in your shoulders. We're going to have a physiological response because that's simply how our brain is designed. So our physiology is also a cue and can be a reminder for us to be curious and to tune in, because sometimes the thoughts may not come first. Sometimes perhaps the sensations come first. But in this example, the thought is what starts the cycle of reactivity. I can't do this. It then leads to a sensation in your body. Like we mentioned, all those possible sensations. Now move to the 9 o'clock portion of the clock. And this is where emotions are going to reside in this framework. So you have the thought, I can't do this. You feel the sensation of a pit in your stomach and some increased heart rate and tension. You now are going to have an emotion, likely as a result of that thought and that sensation. What might that emotion be? It could be an emotion of anxiety, could be fear, it could be dread, it could be sadness, it could be depression. So again, So many options. I'm just sticking with one example. My point is, in pointing out with the thoughts, emotions, and sensations, is they actually all show up almost at the same time. They are interchangeable in which one leads to which next one. However, be curious about your own pattern. I find a lot of people get stuck in their thought. Okay, maybe the thought leads to an emotion of sadness, which then leads to a sensation in the body of tension. Maybe perhaps you're feeling tension first. So maybe the sensations are at that 3 o'clock spot on the clock. It could go in any which order: thoughts, sensations, emotions, thoughts. Remember, these three are interchangeable in which one shows up, which then leads to the next. The key is that they're all interconnected. Now, here's the thing. This is a cycle of reactivity. So now put yourself up at the 12 o'clock on the clock. This is where our reactions reside. And our reactions are what we do whenever we feel stuck and not knowing how to sit with that thought, that emotion, or that sensation. So the reactions can be a couple of different things. Judgment. This is a huge one. We can be asking why. This is one of the biggest ones that I see people get stuck in. Why is this happening? Why can't I do this? Why am I not good at this? Why is everyone better than I am? Other examples of reactions could be resistance. Oh, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to push it away. Denial. I'm just going to push it and pretend it doesn't exist. Continued judgment on self or others. Oftentimes a reaction can even be, I'm going to forget about my emotion and I'm just going to go into fix it and solve it. And that's going to get me out of it. But actually, even fix it and solve it mode does not necessarily always get us out of that cycle of reactivity. Because here's what's happened. All right, so you had the thought, I can't do this. You feel the sensation of tension. You experience an emotion of sadness or anxiety. Your reaction is, ooh, I don't like this. I don't want this to be here. I'm going to pretend it doesn't happen. I'm going to pretend I'm not feeling this. Turns out the problem is that reaction, that reactivity actually doesn't make the thought go away, doesn't ease the sensation, doesn't calm the emotion. That reaction, in effect, makes the thought, I can't do this, a little bit stronger, which makes the sensation a little bit bigger, which makes the emotion a little bit deeper. And whenever we are in the spiral, which is the same language as the unalome, right? The spiral of the unalome. I call this spiral the cycle of reactivity. The more we reject, deny, resist, ignore, push down, judge, question, try to fix or solve, we are keeping ourselves stuck in that spiral of reactivity and we continue to spin. And then the worst part is we begin to think, I'm never going to be able to get out of this. And then we get into comparison mind of others, where we see others being able to, by perception, get through their lives a little bit easier. Then we're back into more judgment. And now the thought of, I can't do this, gets even stronger, the sensation, the emotion, and now we're back in the spiral. The good news is there's a way out. So we're at the 3 o'clock at thoughts, the 6 o'clock at the bottom is sensation, the 9 o'clock is emotion. Instead of going back up to the 12 o'clock for the reaction, here's what I'm going to suggest. You're at that 9 o'clock position, and I want you to veer completely off course onto an entirely different plane. And that is going to be your responses. Because when you can respond versus react to whatever it is that's arising, thoughts, emotions, sensations, distractions, when you can respond, you are offering yourself compassion, you are being more present, you are increasing awareness, and you are giving yourself the ability to get through whatever is arising with greater ease, with greater peace, with greater calm, keeping you back into a place of feeling grounded and centered and aligned. Now, what do those responses look like? Well, those are all the tools of mindfulness that I teach. So it's going to be coming into your breath. It's going to be Awareness. You can't change what you're not aware of. I always say this. Coming into awareness, creating space and observing what's arising. So in that space, you can mindfully choose, how do I want to respond to it? In that greater space, we begin to see things a little bit more clearly, kind of see the forest for the trees. More responses, cultivating deeper tools of mindfulness, such as tuning into the sensations in your body in a calming way, doing a body scan. Mindful walking might be helpful. Meditation, that's going to be coming often into the breath. Adopting foundations and mindsets of mindfulness, which is going to be acceptance, which is one of the hardest things. People always say to me, but Jory, how do I accept what I don't like? And the key is not accepting it doesn't make it go away. Not accepting it actually makes it worse. Remember that cycle of reactivity? That's not accepting it. When we can practice non-attachment, where we can actually be present without overly attaching to what's the outcome going to be, it's allowing yourself to get comfortable in the discomfort of not knowing. That's equanimity. That's responding with a radical acceptance, with an evenness of mind, with a calmness of your own energy, to not instantly label things as good or bad, positive or negative. I like it, I don't like it. That equanimity is going to give you greater ability to have greater ease of whatever's arising. Other responses that we're going to be able to do is practice gratitude. Of course, my Year of Gratitude book gives you 365 different ways that you can practice gratitude. So there's always a way to get out of that cycle of reactivity by shifting the lens through which you're seeing the world and seeing your experiences. Compassion, self-compassion, loving kindness, offering yourself well wishes. May I be at peace. May I be calm. May I be at ease. So there are plenty of different mindful responses that we can practice, that over time, we build the muscle of our brain that become more like second nature to us, and they become easier to adopt when we recognize that we are stuck in the cycle of reactivity. Now, there's a couple of key things that I want to say about this. One of the definitions of mindfulness is to accept whatever arising in the present moment non-judgmentally. Two keys in there are acceptance and judgment. Accepting, I already commented on. How do we accept what we don't like? Well, not accepting it doesn't make it go away. And the judgment piece is a tricky one, because people can often feel like, well, I have judgments, and therefore, does that mean I can't be mindful because I'm experiencing a judgment? And the truth is no. You're human, you're going to have judgments. And in fact, those judgments inform you of a lot of things about yourself, your values, your morals, your wants, your needs, what's important to you. The key is to not necessarily act on those judgments mindlessly. Now, the opposite of judgment, I believe, is compassion. If we can enter into whatever we're arising with a kindness, knowing that whatever we're experiencing is simply part of being human, and that we are already getting through whatever it is that we're struggling with, by the mere fact that you're breathing, you're getting through it. So the cycle of reactivity is being in that spiral, and the responses are just like on the unalome, that line coming out of the spiral, that twists and turns that only up towards the top begins to get a little bit straighter. And the meaning of the unalome is the path to enlightenment, or the path to peace. And I actually have a tattoo of this. I got a matching tattoo with my fiance when we were dating for only 7 months. We were in Thailand, and there's a great episode about that whole story. But I wanted a tattoo of this because I wanted the reminder there's always an opportunity to get unstuck. And I see that tattoo every single day. It's a reminder that getting unstuck is possible. Even if it's hard, it's possible. So that's why I have it as my business logo. That's why I have it as a tattoo on my body. That's why I'm here talking about it to you guys today, because I believe getting unstuck is possible. So let's talk for a few moments about why it is that we might stay stuck. Well, I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's habit, it's pattern, it's familiar. We know how to do it. Oftentimes we have a fear of getting unstuck from these patterns that don't work for us because we don't know what it looks like. It's walking into new territory, and that can feel scary and overwhelming until that becomes a new habit. But at some point, being stuck is no longer going to serve you. And feeling stuck is going to be bigger than the fear of getting unstuck. And in fact, when I was most stuck, there was a quote by beautiful Anai Nin who says, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom." And that is the ultimate power of getting unstuck. And the fear of staying stuck, that at someday, the day's gonna come where staying tight in a bud is greater than the risk it's gonna take to blossom. And so see how that resonates in your own life. What does that mean to you? Where are you holding yourself tight in a bud and you're afraid of blossoming? Maybe perhaps simply because it's an unknown. And I'm here to remind you, even when it's hard, it's possible. And the language in which we communicate to ourselves in our own mind, if you didn't listen to it, go back and listen to my episode a few weeks ago on communication, because when I talk about mindful communication, it's not just communication to others, it's communication to ourselves in our own mind. Language matters and has impact on our thoughts, our emotions, our sensations, and our outcomes and experiences. Another reason we might stay stuck is because it keeps us in proximity to others. There might be a fear of change or disconnection if we get unstuck. Well, then you've got to tune into and ask yourself, is this connection with others that staying stuck is serving me, is that connection greater than the connection to myself? Because so often we put others ahead of ourselves. We aren't very good at self-compassion. We can feel guilty or selfish for taking care of our own needs. And ultimately, this is your one and only life. And how are you going to live it? That choice is up to you. So it makes perfect sense to me why we stay stuck. And yet it's easier said than done. And when we get unstuck, it's not about creating a huge shift. It's not about creating a big 90-degree turn. It can be small 1% shifts at a time. And over time, that 1% is going to grow. So you got to hold on to even small changes over time are going to produce bigger effects in your life. So some of the areas in which I see people most getting stuck are one of 5 areas in no particular order of importance. I see people really getting stuck in their relationships. And so what might be some things that you're feeling stuck in your relationship? Perhaps your relationship isn't feeling fulfilling to you. Perhaps your partner isn't present or not as communicative or affectionate or vulnerable as you'd like. Maybe you're feeling stuck in your relationship because there's no effective communication. Maybe you're feeling stuck by not feeling seen, heard, or validated by your partner. Maybe you're not as intimate as you'd like to be. Maybe after all these years together, you have put everything into your kids or your job and you don't know what connects you anymore. Maybe you're feeling stuck because maybe once those kids are out of the house, you're going to be like, holy shit, now what? What are we going to do with each other? It's possible that you feel lonely in your relationship. And there's nothing worse than feeling lonely when you're with someone. Like, that's a painful feeling. Maybe we don't make our relationship a priority. Or perhaps, there's been a lot of past pains or wounds that have gone unresolved. And over time, the resentment has grown and you've been unable to resolve and heal those past pains and wounds. And it prevents you from connecting now. So there's a lot of ways we can be stuck in our relationship. Maybe one or many of those resonated with you. Another area in which we can easily get stuck in our lives is in our parenting. I know I work with so many women, so many moms, and I see this at multiple stages in the parenting. Perhaps, I know that you love being a parent, and yet we often put so much into that role that we don't know who we are outside of that role, and we lose ourselves. Or maybe you're stuck because parenting's a lot harder than you thought it would be, and you're afraid of screwing up your kids. Maybe you don't even know how to have effective discipline. So you're getting stuck and feeling powerless in your home, and that your kids are walking all over you or manipulating you because you don't feel like you're captain of the ship. Maybe you are too enmeshed with your kids and you take on their emotions or their stressors as your own, and you can't differentiate yourself from their lives. Maybe you worry a lot in your parenting. Maybe you worry about how the pandemic's going to affect your kids. What is their education going to look like? How are they going to be social? How are they going to make new friends again? How are they going to get used to eye contact and seeing other people? Maybe you're feeling stuck in your parenting because you're always yelling and you don't know how to shift out of that dynamic or out of that habit or pattern, because maybe that's what you were raised with, but it didn't work, but it's what you know. So there's so many different areas in which you can get stuck in parenting. Maybe one of those or many of those resonated. There's also the areas in which we can get stuck in our own self-identity or self-concept. I work with a lot of people who don't really know who they are at this point in their lives. They want to create more purpose or more meaning, but don't know how or don't know where to start. Or maybe you're feeling like something's just not right and I don't even know how to name it. Or then if I knew how to name it, I don't know what to do with it. Maybe you're not fulfilled in your life and aren't even sure of what would fulfill you. If you want to create change and you want the next chapter to be different than the current or previous chapters, and you don't even know if you have the courage to create any change. Maybe you feel selfish for doing self-care. This can really keep you stuck. Maybe you're stuck in not knowing what brings you joy or brings you contentment. Maybe you're stuck in these old habits and patterns and you don't even know how to create new ones. Perhaps you're feeling stuck in your friendships. Maybe they're feeling superficial and you're wanting more depth. Maybe you're getting stuck in how to make choices and make decisions and you don't know how to differentiate what are the factors in how you go about decision making. So again, a variety of areas in our own self-concept in which we can get stuck that can keep us spiraling in that cycle of reactivity. Another category that I see many people getting stuck in has having to do with their health and wellness. Constantly feeling stressed, never being able to catch up on the to-do list, always feeling anxious and fearing the unknown, knowing what's good for them, but not always knowing how to practice, right? Because if you're always told I should meditate, but you're not doing it. Maybe you're always tired and never feel rested or refreshed. Maybe you're feeling stuck in your weight and your body image, and that's impacting your sex life or your self-concept, or just not feeling good in your own skin or your abilities to go hiking or biking with the kids. Maybe you get stuck in rumination and in patterns of the mind affecting your overall wellness, getting stuck in those what ifs. I know many people get stuck in not being able to fall asleep at night because their mind simply won't stop. Or simply just having an inability to be present. Whether it's out of anxiety, I'm always rushing to what's next, or I don't like what the present moment is, so I want to deny or resist or ignore it. So our health and wellness can greatly get affected by being stuck. And the last area in which I really see people getting stuck is within their mindset. Things like shoulding on themselves. I should be able to do this better. I should be able to do this on my own. I don't know how to ask for help from others. A mindset of dwelling in the negatives and having a challenged ability of being able to focus on what's going well. Maybe it's a mindset of, well, this is as good as it gets. This is just what my life is. It's not what I thought, wished, or hoped for, but it's what's here. So, oh, well, I'll just manage and just, resign myself to it. Maybe it's getting stuck in the mindset of, I can't. I've often told my kids, as soon as you say you can't, you've decided you won't. And that's simply a mindset shift that you can create. Maybe you get stuck in the past, or maybe you get stuck in old definitions of yourself that don't serve you now. Maybe you get stuck in not knowing how to create a present moment narrative. Maybe you get stuck in traumas, and that trauma informs your identity today. Maybe you are stuck in pessimism or fear. Maybe you're stuck in judgment or guilt or shame. Maybe you're stuck in a comparison mind to others. So I think this is a pretty lengthy list of different areas and different ways in those different areas that people can get stuck. And oftentimes these different areas of feeling stuck can affect one another. So your sense of self is going to affect your relationships and your parenting, or your health and wellness is going to affect your sense of self, or your mindset's going to affect all of these. So now that I've named the challenge, I have some solutions. So I invite you to go to the show notes and download the special assessment I've created for you to figure out where exactly it is that you're stuck, because I believe that awareness is the first step. If you can gain greater compassionate rather than judgmental, remember, we want to get out of that spiral, out of the cycle of reactivity. If you can gain greater compassionate awareness of where you're stuck, that is the very first step of creating change. That is the very first step to being able to respond versus react. That is the first step in getting you out of the spiral, reaching you towards greater peace, greater ease, greater alignment, greater authenticity, and ultimately greater happiness and joy. And I know that at least one of those statements resonated with you. I know that you have your own patterns of what your cycle of reactivity look like, and I'm here to help guide you out of it. So go ahead, grab the Get Unstuck assessment. It's in the show notes, and use this as a beginning stepping point towards creating greater change in your life. Now, if you go through that assessment, there's going to be a special offer for you. So be sure to tune into that. And I'm here to guide you because I know how painful it is to stay stuck. And I also know that growth and change is possible. And I also know that if I can do it, you can do it, because I was pretty damn stuck. And I used to be convinced this is just who I am. This is just the way life is. I better get used to this feeling of being stuck. And I'm here to tell you now, there are very few areas of my life in which I get stuck in that habit of being stuck. I'm still human. It's going to creep up at times. And it is possible to rewire those habits, those patterns, your mindset, to help you in all those different areas of your life. And I think the only other category I didn't really cover there is your career and your job. And that's going to often show up, whether it's in, relationships or self. And when I'm talking about relationships, those might not always be significant other, but friendships, family members, work people. But that might be an area in which you're feeling stuck is in your career, whether it's in growth of not getting to where you want to be, whether or believing you're not in the right place. So I hope that this episode resonated with you. I hope that you're feeling a sense of optimism rather than pessimism. I don't want you to take this awareness of this spiral and cycle of reactivity and all these areas in which you're stuck, and I don't want you to feel doomed around that. I want you to hear there's a way of getting out of it. There's a path out. There's a journey forward that you can take to get you to where you want to be, because I know it's possible. And if you don't believe it yet, then I'm going to hold the space for you that it is possible, because I know I've been there. And if I can do it, I guarantee you can do it. So thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Journey Forward. Check out the show notes. There's lots of resources for you. And most importantly is that Get Unstuck assessment, because I most want all of you to be living your best life, one in which you are in alignment of your mind and your body, one in which you have ability to be greater accepting of whatever is arising in this present moment with compassion, and one in which you get to live your best authentic life. All right, thanks you guys so much for tuning in. If this episode spoke to you, I would really love a rating or review on Apple iTunes so we can get more people into the Journey Forward community. Take care and be well.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.